and so she knows how to get things done, and we're just really excited to have her here with us today. Please welcome Chairwoman Kristin Gaspar.
Well, good afternoon. I tend to be more mobile, so this podium thing's throwing me off, but I think I might be able to break all the rules. We try not to break rules when we chair things. It's just never a good thing to do. Well, thank you for the opportunity to come before you. I have no idea how much time we have, so I'm going to self-regulate my time. How much do we have? 10? When you start getting bored, just raise your hand and I'll stop talking. I'm going to set a stopwatch here. It's helpful. Well, for those of you who've heard me speak before, I'm so sorry I may just bore you to tears, because I always like to open up by telling you a little bit of a story. As mentioned before, I used to be the mayor of the city of Encinitas before I was the supervisor. And some people know a secret about me, that my best 3 political advisors actually live in my home. Now, these wonderful political advisors are my children. They're ages 10, 12, and 8, and they have an opinion on everything. So it's a great sounding board. So when I was making the decision to perhaps run for county supervisor, I consulted those 3 lovely political advisors at home, and they all were a unanimous no, Mom. You should not run for the county board of supervisors. And I said, well, why not, kids? This is a really exciting opportunity in the city of Encinitas. My constituency includes 63,000 individuals. But in the county of San Diego, in my District 3 alone, I would have 650,000 constituents. And they looked at me, and it was still a unanimous no. So I took it to the next level, and I said, okay, kids, here it goes. In the city of Encinitas, I'm managing $110 million. But at the county of San Diego, I would be responsible for a $5.7 billion, yes, ladies and gentlemen, billion with a B, dollar budget, and it was a unanimous no. And I said, okay, just tell me, I give up. Why is it that you don't support this decision? My son looked at me and said, Mom, it's very clear. When I tell my friends you're the mayor, they immediately know what it is that you do. And nobody, and I mean nobody at school, is going to know what a county supervisor even does. And here's the reality of the situation. It gets worse. It's not just the playground at school where they don't know what I supervise. It's most people have no idea what we do on the County Board of Supervisors. And I think it's a great compliment to the board, because as mentioned before, it's been 32 years before an incumbent's been unseated on that board. We've had very steady, stable leadership at the board for decades. And most people know by now that's about to change due to term limits. So where we've had 4 supervisors managing the finances of the county, looking after the short, medium, and long-term health, by 2020, that entire board will be new. So it's really an incredible point in time at the county. And I want to talk to you a little bit about the challenges that we face as a community and where we're headed over the next year. But I'm not going to tell you too much, because I'm encouraging all of you to come to the State of the County address on February 27th. So this is just a little teaser to get you to that event. And here's my promise to you. I've looked intensely and sat through hundreds of State of the Whatevers, and they're boring. No one wants to admit it, but most of the time they're kind of boring. So anything that you expect to see in a State of the Whatever is not included as part of this event. So please come and enjoy and learn more about what we're doing at the county level. But the past year has been an incredible opportunity for me, because in many ways, even though I've grown up in San Diego, I've gotten an opportunity to rediscover the San Diego region and address some really tough challenges that we have. Now, there are a lot of things that we see as residents of our community as a problem, but I would challenge you to think about that, because what you're seeing on the surface is really a symptom of an underlying problem that we have. And a lot of times, it's a problem with how we're spending money. And we love to blame the government for everything, so yes, I will throw us right under the bus and say that some issues that we have in our community, the toughest social issues that we're seeing as communities, perhaps need a little bit of innovation, a different approach, especially in areas where we seem to be hitting our head against the wall and producing the same result time and time again. So I want to talk about a couple of those challenges that we have as a region and how San Diego I'm really proud of, because we are at the forefront of innovation. We are always pioneers. So first and foremost, what are some of the symptoms that we see? Very visible. Zach was just outside breaking up a fight between two homeless individuals when this meeting began. He's all calm about it, but there was a situation outside and he went and took care of it. Now, anybody sit in traffic today? I did. But sitting in traffic is just a symptom, and of course, the underlying cause is that our regional infrastructure isn't where it needs to be. Anyone pleased with how much money out of their paycheck is going to pay for their rent or their housing, their mortgage? I'll be the first to say I'm not real pleased with what I'm paying as a San Diego resident. A lot of challenges with affordability in the region. And if you look how well we're doing at building affordable housing in the county of San Diego alone, the state gives us a certain number we need to meet as a region to diversify the types of housing that we need to accommodate the type of growth that we have as communities. Well, the number that San Diego was tasked with was 22,000 units in a 10-year housing cycle. We're almost at the end of that 10-year housing cycle. We have built 4,000 units. Want to take a stab at last year? How many were in that very low income affordability category? One unit. And want to take a stab at the year before that? 0. The year before that, 1. And we wonder why we're having some of the challenges and why Zach's outside before this meeting. So I want to talk to you about the past year. I made it a point to really dig deep into the issue of homelessness. But then I quickly found that not only is this a really complicated issue, but we have multiple vulnerable populations within San Diego County that are contributing to a very complicated issue. So one of the very first meetings I sat in, there was data being presented by a local university. And they said, you know what, San Diego, we'd be doing really well on addressing homelessness as a region. Look at all the people that we've gotten off of the streets in the past year alone. There's just one slight problem. That for all the people that we're moving out of this extreme level of poverty, there's a certain number that just keep flooding the model. There's this constant, steady intake of individuals that are finding themselves out on the streets in our community. There's another problem too, that we have people that we've worked incredibly hard to lift out of poverty, and they're ending up on the streets again, even after all the resources, all the time and attention to them. It's a real shame. So I decided at that point it didn't really matter to me anymore what the numbers even were, because there was one question left unanswered. Tell me about the people that are becoming homeless in San Diego. Why? Well, we're not required to ask that. Well, we're not required to ask the only question that really does matter, because that helps guide our decision making and how to address the crisis, right? So I said, okay, well, this is challenging, but it really helped me focus my efforts, because I want you to think about how government typically spends money, and it's a really nice model that we use. And I'm talking about homelessness at the moment, but you could plug most anything into this model. And also, anyone else challenged at drawing, at art in general, like me? You're not really good at it, it's fine. I know you are. But you can draw this too, because this is the typical government model. And at the center of the model is the big dollar sign. So take any challenge that we have as a community, and most government spending is aimed right at the middle of the crisis. And we wait until this crisis exists to do anything about it. because it has to be really evident before we can move that quickly. So homelessness is quite like this. And what I just described to you, the arrows, the intake, and those that are becoming homeless again, after all the time, energy, and resources aimed that direction. So I made it a point to change this little model to make it more advanced. And then I drew myself on this side of the model. And I said, this is where I want to work. Because prevention is the key here. Where everyone else is aimed at the middle, there's a lot of time and attention there. There's little attention on the prevention strategy. And I also want to work on the other side of this model. Because how terrible is it that when we've done all of this work, that people actually end up right back in the middle of crisis. So I started exploring the vulnerable populations that we have as a county. Number one, we are a military town. People don't even realize the critical role that San Diego plays in our national security. And I had the opportunity over the past year to do so many visits with our military bases and learn more about the role that San Diego plays, and it's significant. Significant information as well is the thousands of our men and women that transition out of service each year in San Diego. Now, they have given us several years of training to learn how to serve our country. And it's very sad to learn at how much training goes into transitioning back into civilian life. Many describe this process as a one-day crash course. And think about the situations that have changed in many of these situations. These men and women may now find themselves in a position where they have a family that they need to care for. And then they come back to expensive San Diego. How are you going to get a job? Where are you going to live? Because many are not equipped with the life skills, the job skills to set them up for success in expensive San Diego. Vulnerable population that we can intercept. So we have some great organizations locally that are doing wonderful work. Workshops for Warriors is one I want you to look into if you're not familiar. Because they're taking that transitioning military and they are equipping them with vocational skills that they need to get a good paying, sustainable job in San Diego. And at the same time, they're solving another crisis, which is the lack of those trained in advanced manufacturing. We have a lot of jobs in the country available in that field. We just don't have the training that matches it. Another vulnerable population, I want to turn your attention to the youth population of San Diego. 35,000 young people in San Diego County alone are not employed and they're not in school. What do we expect to become of this population if they're not strengthened too? In looking at our youth population, we're really proud that our youth incarceration rates and arrest rates have gone down almost 50%. But it's not by surprise, it's due to the innovative work that's being done, alternatives to custody. I want to talk to you about Camp Lead. It's new to the Escondido area. Camp Lead is a wonderful program that takes young people through leadership training in a week-long camp. They're being taught by plainclothes deputies, and they don't know it. At the end of the week, they show up to their graduation in their uniforms. So not only are they developing leadership skills at this camp, they're learning how to use our local law enforcement as mentors and not fear local law enforcement. And then they take that learning experience out and carry it forward as young leaders in their community. When we talk about foster youth, it's really quite sad that 50% of our foster youth in San Diego do not graduate from high school. 97% don't go to college. A highly vulnerable population. And one that's really near and dear to my heart is the fastest growing demographic in San Diego. This is our senior population. I spent a lot of time running a senior fitness program out of our office and really got to know some of the challenges that our seniors are up against and watching them work so hard to stay in place in their homes and oftentimes in San Diego without a lot of options. How are they going to downsize and go anywhere anyway? It's also unaffordable. So I teamed up with Supervisor Jacob on the Alzheimer's project because many are surprised to learn that Alzheimer's and related dementias, third leading cause of death in San Diego County. Again, we can do something about it if we have a prevention strategy. Thankfully, San Diego County has a prevention strategy aimed at just all of these populations that I've addressed today. And it's called Live Well San Diego. And many of you in the room are Live Well partners. Now, Live Well San Diego is a strong statement that we need to prevent the preventable and that we need to invest in human potential. And that by doing so, we'll save an absolute fortune at the same time. So it's really a win-win. We're helping people become self-sufficient in our communities and not dependent on the services that we provide as a county board. We're helping set them up for success. And they're coming back and actively contributing as great assets in our community. So Live Well you hear about a lot, and some people mistake it for the government telling us how to eat healthy. You know, IT is our director because everywhere in the county building where you go to push an elevator button, it says, push yourself, take the stairs. And it really makes me mad when I want to be a little bit lazy. But then I go to push the button, and I'm like, great, just take the stairs. But Live Well is much more than that because it's a recognition that we're not going at any of this alone. Look at the talented nonprofit community that we have as a region that are much better at tackling these issues than the government ever would be. So we've partnered with these organizations, and I'm pleased to report that we have over 300 Live Well partners now in the San Diego region that are helping people to build better health, to live safely, and to thrive as a region. And we always are looking for new partners. Now, finally, at the state of the county, and this is where it's just a teaser because it's some work that I'm very proud of, that I've participated in. There's another vulnerable population that we have, and that's the formerly incarcerated. And never have I spent so much time in jail and prison since I became the county supervisor, but I'm glad I'm just visiting. I haven't been booked into any of that. But it's been really interesting because most people are starting to take note that every time we put someone into our jail system for a year, $60,000 expense to the taxpayer. And if you look at the average number of arrests of people that just cycle in and out of our jail system, you look at the legislative changes and some of the voter-approved changes that make it harder to go to jail, we have another very vulnerable population in our county, and that's the formerly incarcerated. How are they going to compete in the job market here when we have people without that arrest record competing for those same jobs? How are they going to afford to pay rent in expensive San Diego County? So the work that I've been doing deals heavily with the formerly incarcerated in piloting some new innovative programs for San Diego that don't require taxpayer funding at all. And a common thread between a lot of the programs that I'll be a champion for moving forward, there's a strong component of social enterprise in the innovative work that's allowing these programs to be self-sustaining into the future without government dollars placed there. So I'm going to make a bold statement and go on the record now and tell you that as your county supervisor, I don't want more resources. I don't think the challenge that we have as your county board is with resources. It's an allocation of resources problem that we're having. And the only way to pull ourselves out of this as a region is to adopt a real prevention strategy, to adopt an innovative strategy that will help lead people to self-sufficiency in the long term. Many of the things that you'll hear proposed are great as a short-term strategy, but what does that long-term outlook look like for the San Diego region? So I'm really happy to have some additional time at the State of the County coming up on the 27th of February in everyone's favorite place to drive in the evening hours, La Jolla. And you'll learn more about the work that's being done, the incredible work being done in San Diego, and what we can expect in the future. And I just encourage you, if you have an organization that's not a Live Well partner, you need to be a Live Well partner with us so that we can go at this together in a partnership rather than the San Diego County Board of Supervisors doing all of this work alone. Thank you for your time and attention. So pleased to be here today.
If you have questions.
Questions? Or I put you to sleep? You can drink a couple sips of coffee. I can wait.
I want to know what your political advisor said about running for Congress.
Well, I'm here today in a professional capacity as your county supervisor, so I actually don't want to address questions about Congress. But oh, those consultants probably would let me, but they can also get in your trouble. You have to be careful what type of advice you take. But yeah, I have to be really careful too, because when I'm here in my capacity as your county supervisor, I'm here as your county supervisor. Candidate second.
I guess I'll ask a question then. So on the behavioral health side of things,
Yes.
you know, from my experience at the hospital, we've really seen a crisis across the county right now. And there's not enough long-term, beds for these patients to go to. And what do you see as some of the solutions for this, especially, and I know it relates to the homelessness issue, but it seems to be more broad. So
Absolutely. It's really important that time and attention is given to behavioral health services as a county. I can tell you that the Board of Supervisors just made an additional $25 million commitment in this area. This is also an area where we're under a lot of scrutiny. You see, many people think that we have a big bucket of money that we're just sitting on and not utilizing that should be employed out into our county. Now, I started looking into the monies that we have at the table, and in the area of mental health services, the county currently has $330 million at play. Now, it's a careful balance because a lot of the initiatives that we've recently undertaken in the past couple of years are program-based. In other words, we have monies on record, but in order to sustain the programs through the duration that they're scheduled, we need that money there to finish what we started. Now, I can't tell you with certainty that these are all the right programs. What I can tell you is, as a supervisor, I really started pushing heavily on outcomes measures. Because how do we know that the dollars that we're spending are effective at all? How do we know that we've programmed that money in the right place at all without looking at outcomes? And I'm a business owner, right? My doors would be closed if I just wrote checks and didn't have any accountability over that money. Before I ever write the check, I know what the end result should be. I know what my goal is. So I've really been stressing outlining clear goals with the dollars that we're spending in this area and making sure that we're accountable for those goals and able to admit if we didn't hit our targets. And that's okay. I think the public really is okay with us not hitting those goals so long as we're making proper adjustments, right? I mean, we're not okay with it, but we can deal with it if we know that we're flexible in nature. So this is an area where we're putting a lot of time and attention, knowing and understanding that it's a contributing factor to the homeless population. This is also a population that we're going to have to take care of for a long time. I mean, probably 20% of our homeless population, we're going to need to raise our hand and say, these are individuals that are going to need some sort of government assistance over the lifespan. And that's okay. The question becomes, what do we do about the other 80% of individuals? And that's very careful triage. I'll also say on the housing front, the county has set aside $25 million in an innovative housing trust fund. And the purpose of that money is to actually build some affordable projects in our region. We've also gone through and looked at our whole inventory of properties that the county owns to say, hey, these are projects that have either no challenges associated with getting affordable housing there or major challenges. But we need our municipalities to do the same. And if the municipalities were making financial commitments and looking at their available property too, we would be in a better situation. So we've been advocating for that. But it's nice to see the number of applicants that we have under that trust fund and the type of innovative programs like whole person wellness programs that are aimed at moving people into this affordable housing, but moving them up and out so that we have that opportunity for someone else. So these are key areas of focus for the county over the next year, 5 years, 10 years, over the long haul. Yes?
Not a question, but a thank you for the county. You did mention alternatives to detention.
Yes.
And thank you for talking about prevention. Our intervention, alternatives to detention, is countywide. It started out as an incubator in South County, and we did so well that now it is an innovative program. And to add, because I'm so proud of the work that we're doing, South Bay Community Services is the lead on that, but we work with other nonprofits, community-based organizations, so it's a very holistic approach to these young people. Our non-recidivism rate is in the high 90s, which is just blowing the charts nationally. So everybody's really looking at how we're working on it. And it's just not because the kids became teenagers and they decided they're gonna, be doing something. It's really looking at the whole family. And that's why, and we closed a detention center in North County, so we're saving money and we're helping kids, and really this is the work of the county working with the communities and our municipalities to really make a difference. So thank you so much for bringing
Absolutely,
that up.
it's so neat to see. It really does warm my heart to see what we're doing. And it represents a changing mindset too, and you know how difficult that is to do. You take people who are just ingrained in their career and they may have been there a long time and they see things one way, and you come and present this new level of innovation and they look at you blankly like, you're trying to do what? But I love looking back and seeing that we can close a whole detention center and we're saving so much money in doing so. We've learned a lot about how we reach youth and what's effective, and so I was able to partner with Supervisor Horn on a project where we were using peer mentoring. We were taking former gang members, working with at-risk youth that were going down the wrong path. But you put a clinician in front of that young person, they don't want to listen to it. My own kids call me grandma mom. They think I'm so old. I've always felt like I was a young mom, but grandma mom. So that youth component, that mentoring piece has been so important. And also, I think you'd be really pleased to see what's happening within the jails. The strive to ensure that people leaving custody have their GED. It's really a big deal. It's really cool to walk in the classroom and see the work that's being done on site in our jail system here in San Diego, to see the vocational training that's taking place. I was able to visit the bakery where they're training people how to be bakers and how to be chefs. And the vocational training is wonderful. We just need a bridge. So they leave custody, they leave that setting where they've developed their education and their vocational skills. And now what? What do we do with the employer base? How do we shift the mindset of our employers here locally? How do we give these individuals time to really further their life skills and their job skills so that they're set up for success? So it's actually really neat work to be involved with. It's challenging work, but I know that because we put these outcomes measures in place, that the outcomes will give us all of the proof that we need that these programs do indeed work. Or we can keep doing it the hard and the expensive way. It's just, I think more people will shift their mindset when they see what we're accomplishing through these alternative strategies. Yes?
I also want to thank you. My name is Jan Caldwell. I'm with the Sheriff's Department. And thank you, piggybacking on your support of the Sheriff's Department. And you have visited our facilities, and we greatly appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And we have a wonderful recidivism rate. It's down to 36%.
So great.
Wow.
Because of programs like the culinary arts and landscaping and civics, and that we partner with workforce partnerships, Second Chance, and starting to build that bridge, as you mentioned, so that the inmates do get their education and they have a route out to go into. We're gonna have job fairs in the jail so that employers can come in and meet these men and women that make some bad decisions when they shouldn't have. So we really appreciate the support. If you could get on the grounds, I would invite you, but I don't want you to go to our Las Colinas, but they have a wonderful little cafe there. You might have seen
Oh,
it.
it's incredible.
It's called the Missing Fork Cafe, and it's where they learn how to be baristas and bake and cook, and so thank you very much for your support on that.
Well, it's just, it's all my pleasure to be there, because you think of the Sheriff's Department, and they're so innovative in their work. But you think that all the stars are aligning, because it's not just the Sheriff's Department, it's probation, it's the DAs, it's the courts, it's everywhere. And it's very rare to see across all of these departments and agencies that everyone's getting on the same team. And so it's really a beautiful thing to witness and to be a part of and to be a champion for. And I think Live Well was that umbrella, it was that catalyst to start looking at things a different way. And San Diego is now receiving national recognition and accolades for this vision as a region and fitting everything into this broader mission as a region, as opposed to just, paying for this, paying for that, not knowing if that money sticks at all. So I'm really so pleased to be a part of it, and just thrilled with the support that we've gotten from the Sheriff's Department and probation, who in many ways have the answers to a lot of the challenges that we're facing. Yes, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you for you've done, and I listened to what you mentioned about prevention. Being in the medical community and working in the healthcare system for many years, I've noticed that mental illness in our state, in our cities, in our country has increased tremendously. And I believe a lot of city officials don't focus enough time, money, and effort on mental illness. And mental illness, I believe, is going to destroy America if we don't focus the right effort on that. And I believe that here in San Diego, we had meetings here before in which some city officials think that the mental illness and the homeless population is about 70%. And it's not, it's over 90%. And if we focus more on that, I think in the long run, it will help more people by addressing the mental health issue first than anything else, because in the long run, we save more money, and with prevention, it will be better.
Sure, I agree with you. And if you look at the county's budget, that's the largest line item of our budget. And the question quickly becomes, is it enough? And is it properly allocated? And that's the question that we're on a journey to really be able to answer with certainty. We know we have an issue with housing, challenges with especially the severely mentally ill population, being able to house them and have community support for these units being within the general population. So we always struggle with housing. And so it's an area that's getting the attention. We're not there yet to achieving all of the goals as a region. I agree with you, and especially with the challenges we have with the homeless population in the region, it's becoming more evident. But here's the great news, because homelessness is on the top of mind of most every community throughout San Diego. I think when it's given that spotlight and that attention, it helps soften or increase the community support for the type of help that's needed. Our hospitals are struggling to keep up with the demands. We've piloted programs to keep people out of the emergency departments and route them properly to the care that they need, because for a long time, you have a sheriff's deputy driving someone to an emergency room, and they're not even appropriate to be at the emergency room, and now that they're there, they're taking up that space for someone who is appropriate for the emergency room. The other place that they're routed is our jails. So we have to properly triage the population that we're working with and have a fast track to the help that they need. And this is where we have some pilot programs going that I'm certain are going to produce some good results that we can look to expand or to partner with other organizations throughout the community. I am remiss in not mentioning the work that's being done over the Medi-Cal with drug alcohol treatment services. So what you're about to hear is that the County of San Diego that currently has a $30 million investment in those with Medi-Cal being able to access drug and alcohol treatment. We are able to leverage state funding, state and federal funding, to expand that $30 million to $130 million. San Diego will likely be the first county within the state of California to create an actual system of care for drug and alcohol treatment for those on Medi-Cal. And this is significant because a large portion of those needing those services are on Medi-Cal currently. But for years and years, we haven't had the resources necessary to develop, to expand the drug and alcohol treatment in San Diego. So this is really a big deal that I know that the county has already applied for that $130 million of funding. And the next step is really creating the system of care. So I'm happy to be part of that effort as well, that's sorely needed.
I'm Tomas Herrera-Mitchell. I'm the CEO of the Balboa Park Conservancy.
It's good to see you.
Thank you for all that you're doing. And a lot of things that you're saying really resonate and are exciting. I wanted to kind of steer the conversation a little bit different angle. The creative classes are a really important part of our community and vital to our economy. $1 billion plus of local impact on our economy. The huge percentage of that is generated in Balboa Park. Unfortunately, again, the funding for the arts is under all out assault. 33% drop in funding from TFT sources this year projected. Can you talk a little bit about what is the county doing to diversify revenue for the arts and culture? There's groups in Balboa Park, there's 30 cultural institutions that donate free annual passes to, we work with 80 social service agencies, including we have a pass for low income and we also have a free pass for military families. And the pass looks exactly like the one that anybody buys. There's no distinction between the different kinds of passes. What's the kind of future of funding for the arts here in our county?
Well, thank you for that question. I come from a very vibrant arts community from the city of Encinitas, and there a lot of time and attention was given to the arts, so much so that the director of the arts had an office location right in where our council offices were. The director was my neighbor in the city of Encinitas, and I happily welcomed him back into my office the other day in a different capacity, in a more regional capacity where he was representing the arts and the role that they play in our local economy. And thank you for what you're doing in Balboa Park, because it is the one-stop shop, the hub, that hub of the arts for San Diego. Also thankful for the work that you're doing, providing opportunities for those who might not be able to afford to have that arts and culture experience there. So I know that it's been a frustration that as a broader region under the county's umbrella, we haven't had a fully developed arts strategy. It's something that we may want to think about in the future. Is we don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel. I know we have strong arts advocates out there, groups that are representing arts as a broader region, but it might be nice to develop a more regional framework operating from some of the individual cities within San Diego that are doing things well, in recognition that these investments do have a certain return on the investment. So being able to make those arguments, I think, is very important. Certainly, we need to partner with individuals such as yourself and the local arts organization in order to be able to do that. So I would say there's work to be done. We tried the best that we can through the county's grant programs to provide funding for the arts. So you'll see out of our individual supervisorial offices, investments being made through both the community enhancement grant process and the neighborhood reinvestment process. But it's never enough. We have 400 organizations typically that apply through our individual offices and break up that pie, so to speak. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be done, I think, through the county's grant program, but traditionally that's how it's been done. You have to let the mayor answer.
Very short answer.
Very short question, sir. When you mentioned about that, the housing numbers that are redesigning, arena numbers,
Sure.
Regional housing. Needs
How well are you doing in your city? Is that fun too?
Uh,
You're doing better than most,
I
actually.
can tell you, we're doing.
Yeah, you're
Ours
exceeding.
increased by 1,500%.
Yeah, they're exceeding.
So, NCS is not gonna be doing as well as.
No, no,
I'm
no.
sorry. But anyway, when you mentioned the numbers, you said that only one had been built this time. Were you referring to countywide?
County, I'm sorry.
Incorporated?
I'm throwing myself under the bus here because this is what's happening in San Diego County unincorporated that we're responsible for. So thank you for the clarification there.
And, and it's not a big downer on the unincorporated area, because the problem is normally for the funding for low-income housing, they want density to make sure that it makes sense to do that. And most of those areas unincorporated do not have the transportation, do not have all this, because you don't have the density. So
It's harder in unincorporated, and that's where you see these big battles. But hats off to the work that you've done in your city, because he really should be complimented for shouldering much of the needed housing as a region. The point of those regional numbers is to split it up as a region and make sure that there are opportunities in each individual city. So it shouldn't be that National City stands alone with those big numbers that you do. But without you, I don't know where it would be. So we're thankful to have National City really exceeding expectations. We're not there yet, but as the mayor points out, we're challenged because we have the territory that a lot of people believe should be kept more rural. So it's always a careful balance, and most people are more receptive to density where density exists today. That's the short answer, but I am a public servant, which means I have no privacy at all, which means you can access my phone and email and contact me with any additional questions. But thank you for your great questions and your time and attention today.